Hello and welcome to episode number 65 of The Pitcher or the Hitter, the podcast by the M-SABR Dynasty League for the M-SABR Dynasty League. I am Cam.
I'm Sahil.
And surprisingly, it's been all quiet on the trade front since the draft. A lot of prospect cuts, people trying to make trades, trying to clear their rosters, but no one, at least to this point at the time of recording, has been traded. How surprised are you by that?
I'm mildly surprised. I mean, last year, for example, after the draft, we did not have a trade for almost exactly a month. The draft was on January 31st. The next trade after that was on March 1st, which was the ill-fated Marcus Semien deal from Jake to EBO. Interestingly, Oswald Peraza was also traded that day for 2023 second. His stock's come up quite a bit, but I'm not totally surprised, but it does seem like there are some trade talks going down. I know I've talked to a few people in the league. I know that Andrew and Jake in particular seem like they've been discussing quite a few deals. Maybe something's going to happen soon. We'll see. I'd be a little surprised if there wasn't at least one deal over the next week. I think there's enough momentum there.
I would be surprised too. And we're going to talk a little bit later about players we think are going to be traded. But before we do that, no one's been traded, but some surprising players have been cut. Well, at the very least, two third-round picks from this year have already been cut. I cut Michael McGreevy, who was taken 35th overall, and Yuki cut Tyler Black, who was taken 33rd overall. So this is something we've seen before, players being cut right after, but I'm a little surprised that two people have already been cut, just kind of going to show this draft maybe a little bit weaker towards the back, or maybe teams are more confident in their farm system towards the back.
Yeah, I mean, the two teams that make the cuts were you and Yuki. You probably have the deepest farm system of everyone, and you also made one first-round pick and 3 second-round picks. So you did add quite a bit to the farm as is. As for Yuki, I don't think he has as deep of a farm as you. He has some interesting names, but that was also his 5th pick of the draft. So I think some people kind of fell into a position where they had some extra 3rd-round picks and just ultimately didn't have the space. And you and I talked about this last week, how there just really wasn't a market for 2022 3rd-round picks once the draft started. I think it is what it is. There was one dropped almost immediately after the draft last year. That was Jake and Clayton cutting Daniel Cabrera, Tigers outfielder, after trying to trade him with no luck. So I'm mildly surprised that Tyler Black has not gotten any consideration by anyone to be picked up yet, but I didn't really think anybody was going to pick up Michael McGreevy. I thought there were better starting pitcher prospects out there in the draft that were not drafted and or drafted afterwards, aka my pick. So I'm a little biased here, but Jordan Wicks. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I liked Michael McGreevy enough to, I would have taken him at 30 even if I had held on to that pick. But there are some, I guess I didn't like him enough to keep him on my roster. A couple interesting players were cut, though. Peyton Battenfield, someone I find interesting. I considered picking him up at one point, changing Jake Eder for him. I ended up not picking him up, but he's someone I certainly find a little interesting. And the other person, I guess, Alexander Canario, was cut by Daniel and Greg's team. He was someone who had a lot of hype going into this past season, but that's kind of fallen off a fair amount. He did not have a great 2021 season. Is there anyone else who was cut that you think is worth mentioning?
Yeah, I'd say there was one player who was cut and immediately added by another team, and that was me cutting Jose Salas. And he's a Miami shortstop prospect, really young. EBO picked him up. He was an A-ball, had a nice year. I've seen some lists kind of call him a potential sleeper for this year who could maybe crack the top 100. He was not a guy I really wanted to cut. I think ultimately I was kind of forced by the roster crunch. But I thought he was a pretty nice pickup for EVO. That being said, like I think he still probably qualifies only as like one of their bottom bats. But
Yeah, he's not someone I would lose a lot of sleep over. He had a 485 BABIP in the complex, which allowed him to hit pretty well. The BABIP dropped to a normal human being BABIP of 325 when he was in single A, and the WRC plus was cut in half. So really, maybe there's something in his swing that people think is good and worth holding on to, but he's kind of in the same camp as 100 other faceless guys who hit decently well in rookie ball.
Yeah, I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head there. There's a couple other guys who were, I'm not really surprised that they were dropped, but it was nonetheless interesting to kind of see how their stock is fallen. Davy Garcia was a guy who's, I think, got some top 100 prospect hype not too long ago.
Yeah, at one point he was. Has he debuted for the Yankees yet? I believe he has.
He has 6 games in 2020 and 2 games this past year. He was okay in 2020, but he didn't look so hot this year when he came up. And he had a 6.75 walk per 9 in the minors this year and a 6.85 ERA, all in triple A. So
yeah, I remember there being a lot of, that's right. I remember there being a lot of debate going into this past season or around this time last year about, who do you want, Davy Garcia or Clark Schmidt? And they both kind of struggled this year.
Yeah, I have a little bit of optimism that maybe Clark Schmidt's going to bounce back, but I don't really see it with Davy Garcia at the rate he's walking.
Well, Clark Schmidt walked 7.11 batters per 9 this past year in the majors.
Oh man, did he?
So that's even. I guess that was only 6 in the 3rd innings, and I guess Clark Schmidt in the minors was a little better in terms of walks.
Yeah,
but
he was fine.
And it looks like so he's both his brief stints in the majors were 6.1 innings. Both times he walked 5 guys in those 6.1 innings, so a little weird, but yeah.
No, for sure. Couple other guys I'll just throw out here. You cut Cody Hosey, who was Mr. Irrelevant in 2020. His stock has dropped a little bit after a down year. You cut somebody whose stock was really high right now. I was a little surprised to see this. You cut Adley Rutschman and then added back immediately. But
yeah, I thought I would make some people sweat for a second. I drop Adley Rutschman, immediately add Adley Rutschman. So for a very split second, I guess you can put him in green. And you know what? I'm going to do that right now.
I love that.
That's going to be so funny. Oh man.
Imagine if somebody had Adley Rutschman already typed up on the prospect sheet in case you did that and added him right before you were able to get it back.
Well, I had already had it typed up just so that no one could do that. And I spelled Rutschman wrong, but to be fair, I was reading what was written in the prospect spreadsheet. So,
which means you spelled your own prospect's name wrong.
Yeah, it's spelled or Eric did. I don't know. I don't know. It feels like it should be 2 N's, shouldn't it?
It feels like it should, honestly. Although even as an Orioles fan, I feel like I get his last name spelling wrong quite a bit. So
it's a tough one.
It's a tough one. I don't blame you. When Matt Wieters first came up, I spelled his last name wrong. I spelled it Weiters, not Wieters, and it took until he got to the majors for me to finally get it right.
Yeah. The Orioles and their weird spelling catchers, like Wellington Castillo spelling Wellington with only 1 L. There's always something with them.
That one really threw me off. That one actually took me a while to get adjusted to. Man, I'm trying to think what other catchers we had back in the day with weird names.
All right, but anyway.
But yeah, that's You don't want to get on the Oriole catcher train with me because then I'll start talking about Chad
Because I
Hall.
know the next Oriole catcher you're going to mention, and we're just going to have to cut it out of the show anyway.
Yeah. I will mention one more prospect that you cut though that also cracks some top 100 lists, and I actually think he'll debut in the majors this year is Bryce Terang. I'm a little surprised nobody's picked him up yet. I thought that might have been the best prospect that was caught. I think he's certainly the best prospect in the Brewers farm system right now.
Well, he's not. No, he's not better than the outfielders they've drafted. Garrett
Oh, I
Mitchell
take
and
that back. I take that back. They've Garrett Mitchell and Joey Weimer.
yeah, Joey Weimer I like.
I think they're who'd they draft this year? Oh, Sal Frelick. Yeah.
Sal Frelick. So they've got a good outfield coming up. They look like, I don't know, maybe like the Diamondbacks looked 2 years ago with that.
Yeah, when Terrain like first came on the radar in this league, like he was by far the Brewers like best prospect. Like they had a very thin farm system at the time. So I still like in my mind still kind of think of him as that. But he has some speed. He had some really good plate discipline, which is I think something I really feel like usually translates well into the majors. So I don't know if he's a high ceiling prospect, but I could see him cracking their infield mix this year. And, you know, with the way the Brewers kind of mix and match infielders, I could see him maybe carving out a regular role next to Luis Urias. Maybe
I could see it happening.
Yeah. So for somebody who needs some immediate kind of major league infield help and doesn't really want to crack the bank open or, you know, waste a major league spot on somebody that like we kind of already know what they have. Like I think Terrain could be an interesting ad, like speculatively for like an Alex and Zach, for example, who are really looking for any middle infielder they can get.
Oh yeah, absolutely. They certainly are.
Yeah. I don't want to keep talking about fringe prospects all day though.
No, let's move on to I guess it's our main segment, although our interview with, that we have up next with Greg is probably our main segment. But this is the main thing we wanted to talk about here with you guys, and that is the trade market. There have been some rumblings behind the scenes of trades, even if there haven't been any made. I know Andrew in particular is looking like he's about to make a trade at any minute. If you had to guess, he'd probably be the next person to make a trade, right?
I'd say it's him. I feel like he's been talking about a couple different types of trades and a couple of like, hey, if I make this trade, then I'll also make this trade. Not just in the baseball league too. I think in the basketball and hockey leagues has been pretty active discussing trades too. So I'd expect something to go down. He definitely could stand to add a pitcher or two. And I think his outfield is comparatively weak when looking at other outfields and also his other positions. So I could see him making an addition or two there. But Cam and I both made kind of a small list of names that we think could potentially be on the move between now and the start of the season. Cam, do you want to kick us off with your first name?
Yeah, so I'm going to start with Chris Bassett. He is a starting pitcher on the Flex and Bellies. This team is probably in the position to sell a guy like him. Bassett's a little bit older than one would suspect. He's 32, right? 32, 33.
I think he's 33. He's he was kind of one of those. He'll be 33 to start the season. He turns 33 on 2/22/2022.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah, that's fun.
But yeah, either way, he's a guy who is it doesn't really fit this team's competitive timeline. I don't think they're going to be competitive anytime in the next year or two. So trading Chris Bassett for prospects could be something that makes a lot of sense. I know they've been a little bit active in the trade markets recently. We've both spoken with them about Bassett trades, and this is a guy I think could be on the move fairly soon.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, Bassett might be getting a little up there in age, but he statistically had his best season of his career last year, a career high strikeout rate, career low walk rate, tied for his lowest home run rate, with the exception of 86 innings in 2015. So he was a bit of a late bloomer, but I could see him having, 3-ish solid years, whether it's in that Oakland rotation or whether he gets traded. So, yeah, I think he'd be a good addition in kind of the middle or the back of contending teams' rotation, whether it's like a Jake, maybe it's somebody like you, maybe not somebody who's quite a contender, but I could see Andrew making the move for someone like him. So, yeah, I like that name. So for my first name, I'm going to turn to your team, Cam. I think Joe Adell could be a very interesting trade chip for you. I know you've already traded away a couple outfielders earlier this offseason. You lost Joey Gallo and Trent Grisham in the Anthony Rendon deal, but I still think you have one of the better outfields in the league, with Juan Soto, who I think is probably just the best dynasty player right now as a whole. You have Aaron Judge, Chris Bryant, who, at the beginning of the offseason, we might have kind of slotted more at third base. I think we can now consider more in your outfield mix now that you have Anthony Rendon. You still have Jarred Kelenic, who, despite the rough season, is still very talented. Kyle Lewis, you acquired AJ Pollock, and Harrison Bader, who I think you and I are both really high on. So Adell, while he might have the talent, there's still some concerns about his K rate. And you do have a couple prospects you're looking at the bounce back. So I feel like, it wouldn't be the worst thing to move on from one of them. And low key, this could be the highest Adell's value is. Like if Adell kind of has a bad start to 2022, I don't really know what you'd be able to get for him on the open market, but with you kind of competing, like I worry then that you might have to sell him for pennies on the dollar just to clear up that roster space, especially with some of the young prospects you have that are probably going to reach the majors this year. You have, one player who is already in the majors in Jose Barrero in 5 in AAA, 4 in AA. So, I feel like now could be a good time to trade Adell. What do you think about that?
I think it could be. I think he's still got some value, but I'm not really sure how he fits on my team. I mean, even though I have traded away a couple outfielders, I think I could still trade away one more and feel comfortable with my situation. And I mean, especially if I don't know, I'd love to acquire Bryce Harper. It's looking less and less likely that it's going to happen, but that would certainly open up a spot for me. Either way, I think Adell would be a good guy for a rebuilding team to acquire and take a gamble on. I know the strikeout rate's a little high, but he's also got such a great bat. He's someone who could benefit a lot of teams in the long run.
Yeah, I feel like speculatively, I feel like Andrew would be a really good fit for him. I feel like a team like Ruthvik, who I think desperately needs an infusion of young talent on the offense, could really benefit from someone like him. And I feel like you two would be a good match because he has a lot of rotation depth. And I get the sense you're looking to maybe acquire a starting pitcher or two. I think Alex and Zach could also be a good fit. They similarly have a lot of depth in their rotation, even after trading Julio Urias. And I think Adell would fit very nicely in their outfield.
Mm-hmm. But the next name I had in mind is a little bit of a surprising one. It is Craig Kimbrell, who's a reliever on EBO. EBO has a lot of good relievers. There's not a lot of reliever talent available. I know a lot of teams are going to be looking for relievers. And I know the waiver wire is a good place to find relievers, but I could also see a team, earlier today, Andrew, to bring everything back to Andrew, we have for each of the first 3 guys. He said earlier today that he's in the market for a reliever. I think EBO is in the market to trade away a reliever. And Craig Kimbrell's kind of an up and down guy. I could see Zane being a little bit more worried about him. And I guess there's no real reason why I chose Kimbrell over someone like, say, Mark Melancon or Tyler Rogers. I just think Kimbrell's, I don't know, the type of name who could fetch a little bit more while still being certainly valuable.
Yeah, I think Kimbrell could be an interesting buy low, just the way he ended the season. I still think the talent is there from the start of the season. And I think if you put him back in a closer's role in another team, he could regain some of that value. And it could be an interesting buy for a team like an Andrew or any team that really is interested in acquiring a closer, really. The name that you mentioned that stood out to me actually is Mark Melancon, because Melancon is pretty much guaranteed to close in Arizona to start the year. Now, there is a risk that he gets traded in the middle of the season where he had a year and a half left on his contract to a team that would use him as a setup guy. But I think he's the type of like low ceiling due to his current situation and the potential for a trade kind of player that wouldn't be too expensive for a team that's looking for some cheap saves, but they would rest easy knowing that they would at least get some to start the season. So I think Melancon is the type of guy I might be targeting more than Kimbrell if was hypothetically in the market for a reliever, even though I think Kimbrell's upside is substantially higher than Melancon's, just because we don't really know what situation Kimbrell's going to find himself in. And low-key, who knows if he's even going to get traded from the White Sox? I know they've talked about it, but maybe a trade never materializes.
Yeah, no, the more I think about it, the more I think you're right there about it being more Melancon than Kimbrell.
Yeah. Although that being said, I think the odds that EVO trades either of them are pretty much even. I don't think they're more likely to trade one over the other. But just from a personal preference perspective, I think I might rather have the security of Melancon. I think I know what I'm getting for him, and I think the price will be cheaper.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, let me talk about the last player that I was going to mention. This one, it was on Jake and Clayton's team. It's Alex Wood. Alex Wood had a really good season this year for the Giants. He pitched to if I could pull the numbers up here, I believe it was like a 3.83 ERA. And my guess was correct with even better FIP at 3.48, 138 and 2/3 innings, solid K rate 9.87, solid walk rate 2.53. He kept the home runs in the park. And most importantly, I think he re-signed with the Giants, which shows their confidence in him. And he's also going to pitch at a really nice pitcher's park. What concerns me about Alex Wood is that he's just never able to stay healthy. He, before this year, pitched a combined 48 and a third innings between 2019 with the Reds and 2020 when he went back to the Dodgers, and he was not really effective in either place. He only threw 138 and 2/3 innings this year, despite the 26 starts. So that's just averaging a little more than 5 innings a start. He hasn't thrown more than 152 and a third innings since the 2015 season. So while I think he'll be pretty solid when he pitches, I don't think he has a ton of this upside. But I do nonetheless think that he's the type of guy that a team could go and acquire to be a back end arm that might not be terribly expensive. I know for a fact that they've shopped him. I heard of one of the offers that they made with him earlier today. I think he could be a little expendable given the depth that they have in their rotation now.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Alex Wood's the type of guy who's expendable, maybe the type of guy you don't want due to his age. But yeah, no, certainly all great picks. Is there anything else we want to talk about before we get into the interview, though?
Yeah, I had 2 questions for you. We've been playing a lot of these over-under games lately, and some other games where I've been asking you questions, and I had 2 I wanted to ask you before we transitioned. All right. Last year after the draft, we had 8 trades between the draft and the start of the season. Over, under, or push 8 trades in between now at the time of recording and the start of the season.
I think that's a pretty easy over.
Interesting. I'm going to say the over 2, but I don't think it's that many more than 8. I mean, I do think we had a very hefty offseason of trades kind of in October, November, December of 2020 with COVID and just everybody being at home. But I also think generally now a lot of teams feel pretty set with their rosters. And they did a lot of their trading beforehand, even if it wasn't at the pace that it was in 2020, where they just kind of knocked everything out before the draft. So I'd say there's maybe like 10 or 11 if I had to guess, but I don't think it's going to be too many more.
All right.
And my second question to you was, and I meant to ask this to you last week, we had our 400th trade or we talked about it on our last episode. It was on January 14th when EBO sent Rhys Hoskins to Connor in exchange for, quote, the multi-position Tommy Edman. Since then, we have had 18 trades, and we are currently at 418 trades. Do you think the 500th trade in league history occurs during the 2022 calendar year?
Let's see. So the first, I guess the league started 2018. So since then, it's been a little under 4 years. So we're averaging, I'm going to say yes, I think it happens in the 2022 calendar year.
Interesting. I think it's going to be close. I'm ultimately going to say it's going to take about a year. So I think it's going to happen in 2023. The difference between trade 300 and trade 400 was 13 months roughly. And I think we might be just slightly off that pace. Although now that I say that, I feel like I want to say the opposite. I want to say it happens in like December. You know what? I changed my mind. I think in December, we're going to see our 500 trade. So I'm going to say it's sometime in 2022. Do you want to put a month on when you think it's going to happen?
I think, well, if you're switching to December, I'm going to switch to 2023. Then I'm going to say it happens in January 2023.
Okay, that checks out. Honestly, I feel like that is more in a line of what we think about trades. I feel like I'm usually the one who's more optimistic about trades going down than you. So I'm not surprised that you and I are kind of switching sides here.
Yeah, I think it's more reasonable. If it took 13 months to get from 300 to 400, I think it's going to be more like that than it is like it was in 2020.
Yeah, that certainly makes sense. I mean, if we're saying December versus January, it's like 11 versus 12 months. So like, I don't think it's a terrible difference. I think we're both generally on the same page of when it'll be broken kind of, but not necessarily in the same month. So
yeah, I think actually now that I think about it, I'm going to push it back to February. Final answer.
February. Okay. February 2023. You and I have done a lot of changing of opinions during this. So we'll see what happens. I mean, in 2021, we did have 90 trades, and in 2022 already, we've had 27 just this month. So almost a third of the number of trades we had in 21. So I don't know if we're going to hit the 167 trades we had in 2020. Obviously, COVID skewed that number a bit, but I think we could possibly see more trades than we had in 2021, in which case we would pass that number. So we'll see what happens there. But that's all I had. I know I'm excited for these interviews that we're going to have coming up. Yeah, do we want to go into a commercial break and then get started with these interviews?
Yeah, let's do it. So yeah, we're going to take a quick break, and we will be back from the commercial with Greg to talk about his team and talk about we've got a fun game plan. Stick around.
Lost her mind. Then one day in spring, my dear sweet mother died. But before she did, I took her hand as she dying cried. Oh, oh.
All right, we are back now. We've got the whole Gallardo Club here, the original Gallardo Club. Welcome, Greg, to the podcast.
Thanks. I'm happy to be here. It's been a while since we had a Gallardo Club reunion.
It's a whole month and a half.
We had the one over Zoom last weekend for hockey.
Okay.
But it's been a hot sec since we've had it in person, a whole month and a half. A month and a half feels like eternity.
It does. Not enough Giovanni chat in my life lately. He's going to be eligible for the Hall of Fame ballot in a couple of years, I guess. I'm excited to see the take surrounding him.
So I feel like the goal is that we all need to figure out how to be one of the Hall of Fame voters by the time he's eligible so we can all vote him in.
Are you kidding me? I live in Boston. I could just write a letter to the Globe telling Dan Shaughnessy the new hot subversive thing is to vote for Gallardo and no one else.
Yeah. He would do that.
Oh, 100%.
All right. But yeah, anyway, welcome, Greg. And we're going to play a game with you in a little bit. That's going to be a lot of fun. But first, so you are, I guess, the newest addition to the league. You'd been in the chat as the, I guess, as our Ken Rosenthal type figure. You left that role as Ken Rosenthal did from MLB. So you maybe foreshadowed that a little bit. But either way, you are our insider. Why don't you talk a little bit about that role, and did you get a lot of insight, or was it just kind of more of an honorary title because it was fun to be in the Slack?
Yeah, I feel like it was Eric's excuse to have me and my noted hot takes and loquaciousness in the Slack. I mean, it was literally like a spur of the moment decision. We were just, getting dinner at, I think, Jug. Yeah, the brown Jug.
We were at Jug. That's when that's when I got Yuki to agree to trade me Marcus Semien. That was that same night.
Hey, fun. So how does it feel to be a part of the second most momentous decision that happened that night?
It was exciting.
Yeah, no. So anyways, it was fine, but most people usually just, when someone's on the block, they can do it themselves. So outside of a couple people, I think Ruthvik, I think Yuki were pretty diligent in giving me the scoops as opposed to them. I got to break a couple trades, and I usually tried to mix up the pot a little bit. I think my first ever message was me saying absolutely no one is on the trade block. Every team is happy with where they are right now and don't foresee any moves being made in the foreseeable future. Which, I thought that was funny.
Yeah.
And isn't that what really matters?
It is. No, absolutely. I did love a lot of the comic relief we were able to get by having you just break like the most random shit. So I was all for that decision. Why don't we move now to the fact that you were a co-owner of a team named the Flexen Bellies, even though you no longer own Chris Flexen. How did that role come about, and what's your role with the team?
So Eric reached out to me and had been in talks with me about me maybe picking up a dynasty baseball team, at least in part, if not in full. This was right around the time Zane said that he was stepping down from EBO. So I'm not sure if I was ever a consideration as part of that, but it doesn't take too much to put two and two together when someone's like, hey, would you be interested in picking up dynasty fantasy baseball team? As there's a lot of uncertainty and owner turnover. So I said, sure, but my fantasy knowledge at that point was not very great. So I figured it would probably be better for me to be eased into it, because coming into, I was active in the hockey league at this point, and that was a very different animal because we were all starting at more or less the same position, right? But in a league like this, where everyone's been around for multiple years, or most people have been around for multiple years, there's sort of a dynamic worked out. I figured it would be easier to ease my way in that way.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So I ended up taking over in part with Daniel, and we were in some regular communication, especially as the season was going on, right? I actually remember the trade deadline. We were trying to sell off a few major pieces, and I was unavailable that night, but I did not put my phone on Do Not Disturb. So like it was just vibrating the entire night through. I got some very disgruntled glares from people who had no idea why my phone was blowing up the way it did.
Yeah. No, I can imagine. I feel like it's definitely been a good introduction. It's been nice to kind of have you in there, especially as Alex Hernandez has kind of transferred out kind of a little bit. And it doesn't appear on face that he's really going to be too much a part of this league moving forward. So definitely glad to see that you've taken on a little bit of a bigger role here in terms of team ownership. I guess my next question for you is, do you foresee yourself at any point being interested in taking over a team outright, or do you think that you would be kind of comfortable remaining in a position, being a co-owner to someone, whether it is somebody like Daniel or maybe even Andrew, which I know we've kind of maybe internally have discussed as something that could be possible, if we ever replace Daniel moving forward, because I get the sense that, he might leave once he graduates.
I mean, it's definitely possible. I don't think it's going to be with Andrew. He and I have talked about that a couple times, and he's said that he's been pretty dead set on managing the Crone Zone on his own to the best of his ability. I'd definitely be receptive to working with him in the future, as we have in Dynasty football. But yeah, I feel like it's more likely I stay on somewhere as a co-owner. I know that Eric has actually talked to me about this, as he's been planning out different successors to some teams that haven't been as active in the league. And I just, frankly, at this point, I just don't feel like I've had that amount of experience or activity to make me really comfortable in inheriting a team and managing that entirely on my own. This is a really deep league, and it's frankly kind of intimidating,
Oh yeah, well maybe if William Gregory comes on, we could have the two Gregs owning a team together.
The Greg Bros.
Right.
Oh, that'd be great. I don't blame you though. This is, I know personally for me, this is a giant time commitment. The podcast is definitely a part of it, but just doing research on a day-to-day basis, it's a lot. So I don't blame you for not wanting to kind of try and take that beast on all for yourself. It could definitely be intimidating. That's all the questions I had, Cam. Was there anything else you wanted to ask Greg before we started our segment?
Yeah, so I guess the last question is, how do you anticipate the rest of the offseason going for your team? I know, we talked earlier in the episode about Chris Bassett being potentially a guy who could be on the move. Is there anything in the works? Anything you guys are looking to do for the remainder of the offseason, or anything you want to plug that you're looking to do?
Daniel and I have, not Daniel, but I have been involved with negotiations Daniel's had with other people. So I'm not really sure of how much I can and can't share, but we'll be listening to any trade offers, and once I figure out who my players are, I will be able to say what players are on the block.
All right. Well, yeah.
No, absolutely. Yeah, why don't we get on to our next segment then? Cam, do you want to explain it, or should I?
I'll do it since I'm the one who's currently talking. Basically, we thought it would be a fun game. We're going to name 10 Mariners players, and you are going to guess which Dynasty League team they are on. So who owns the Mariners player? How well do you know the current, I guess, the whereabouts of some of your Mariners favorites? There are 19 Mariners players, Major League and Minor League, who are owned in our league, and we're going to do 10 of them. And who's the first name that we have, Sahil?
Yes, the first name that we have on the list is Harry Ford.
Harry Ford. I know this because you DM'd me asking what I thought of him. It's Sahil.
Yes, that is correct. Nice job. Question number 2. What team is Jared Kelenic on?
What team is Jared Kelenic on? He's got to be like the well, maybe not the prize prospect anymore, but he's got to be on one of those teams that's pretty deep in prospects, right? I want to say Alex Fisher.
Oh,
I know he has a couple Mariners prospects.
it is not Alex Fisher. The answer we were looking for was Mr. Cam Kane.
That is correct.
Yeah.
I am the prized owner of a Jared Kelenic.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. Well,
Well, we'll see. We'll see how this year goes.
He'll get better this year.
He will.
He has to. Oh God, I hope he does.
God, yeah.
Oh, he better.
Yeah, Cam is really banking on him having a good year. I think he'll be better, but we'll see. Question number 3. What roster is Robbie Ray on? AL Cy Young Award winner.
AL Cy Young Award winner Robbie Ray, a Mariner so new I haven't had a chance to see him play.
Nice round. 10 for 10.
Just because he's got Ray in his name, I'm gonna say Yuki.
Great.
That's great. That's a great guess, but no. It's Cotter.
All right.
Connor got him in a very epic trade in the middle of the season that vaulted him into the finals this year and upsetting me in the semis. And a trade that I believe was 1-for-1 Robbie Ray for Ryan McMahon. So,
Wow.
Yeah, not Alex's finest moment. But let's move to question number 4 here. What roster is Julio Rodriguez on?
Okay, I know this because literally the first thing I did when I inherited the team was see which team had him. So this one, God, it's either Alex Fisher or Eric because they both have like the big name Mariners prospects. I want to say this one is Alex Fisher.
That is correct. And Alex Fisher got him in a trade from Eric. So,
wow.
Yeah, you had a good feeling about Eric there. Yeah, that was the first trade of last off season. Let's see what that one was again.
I would have gotten this one wrong. I had forgotten he was no longer on Eric's team.
Yeah, it's because Eric has George Kirby, right? Or if not Kirby, Hancock. He's got one of the 2 pitchers.
He's got Hancock.
He does.
All right.
Hancock is not one of the ones on the list. Just for reference here for fun, Eric traded Julio Rodriguez, JD Davis, another Mariner, Justice Sheffield, and is Sam Dello playing a Mariner?
He was. I think we DFA'd him last year.
So he traded 3 Mariners and JD Davis to Alex for Jose Ramirez and Yuki's 2021 first round pick, which ended up being Nick Gonzalez. So 1 pick after Eric picked Emerson Hancock. So it was almost a very Mariner trade. Yeah, Emerson Hancock is no longer on Eric's team, actually. Where is Emerson Hancock now? Emerson Hancock, funnily enough, he is not on our list here, so I could say it has made his way to Alex's team as well. So interesting that Alex and Eric have been involved in a lot of Mariner deals. But anyways, let's move on to question number 5. What roster is Matt Brash on?
Matt Brash. I'm going to call him Brash Bonanza until the name sticks. I'm dead set on this.
Sahil, right. As a Hartford Whalers fan, you should know what Brash Bonanza is.
I should. But as a week-old Hartford Whalers fan, not 100% sure, but we'll get there.
It's their goal song.
Oh, okay. I like that.
If you're a Hartford Whaler and you scored a goal at home, they play Brass Bonanza. Hopefully the Hurricanes play a lot of Brass Bonanza tomorrow night. But what am I doing? This isn't a hockey podcast. This is a baseball podcast, and I have to figure out who Matt Brash plays for. This is going to be a complete shot in the dark. I'll guess Ruthvik has him.
Wow.
Wow.
Shot in the dark was correct. It is Rubik who owns Map Rash. I'm impressed.
I'm impressed, man. I was not expecting that.
Oh, God damn. That's a good one.
Golden Brash indeed.
Yeah, he is one of Ruthvik's better prospects, I would say. That was great. Let's move on to question number 6. Let's talk about a former Flexin Bellies legend, Chris Flexin. He is no longer on the Flexin Bellies, so maybe you all would more be appropriately named Flexin Bellies without Flexin. But what roster is
I think we changed the E to an I.
Oh.
Flexin Bellies? I love that.
I think those are just called ab muscles.
Oh God.
Oh my God. Christ. I love that. But
That's great.
What roster is Chris Flexin on?
Is he on EBO?
He is on EBO.
Wow.
That is
Yeah,
3 in a
Zane-
row for you.
Zane put a trade notification out in the chat, and I was like, hey, maybe I should trade for Chris Flexen again.
Oh man. I didn't think you were gonna get more than 3 right, and you have already gotten 4 right out of 6, and you've only gotten 2 wrong. Damn. All right, let's move to question number 7. What roster is Ty France on?
Ty France. Oh boy, this is, I don't know, I feel like I know more about the prospects than I do the active players, which would be on brand considering the Mariners prospects are the most exciting players they have currently. Ty France, this is going to be another shot in the dark. Is he on Yuki's team?
So close. I believe Ty France was on Yuki's roster at one point, and I will fact check this. He was on Yuki's roster and was traded to Ruthvik's team. The trade was Ty France, William Contreras, not Wilson, and Jackson Rutledge for Diego Castillo, Adrian Morejón, and Ronaldo Hernandez, reuniting Yuki with quite a few Rays, but no.
I hope Diego Castillo isn't on this list.
Diego Castillo is not on this list. Where is Diego Castillo right now?
Is he not on Yuki's team anymore?
No, I meant like what major league team.
He's on the Mariners.
Oh yeah, he's still on the Mariners. I didn't know if they like DFA'd him or something.
No. That was the whole point. That was Jerry DePoto's 5D chess move, right? It was, let me get rid of my really good closer who's got half a year left for Abraham Toro, and then use some nobody to get Diego Castillo because he's got like 3 years of ARB. So I guess now it would be 2 ARB years left.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's true. You are right. Diego Castillo is still on Yuki's roster for some reason. Who knows why? But let's move to question number 8. What roster, speaking of Mariners relievers, is Paul Sewald on?
Oh boy, this could be any team.
It really could.
Really?
It really could, couldn't it?
Maybe not your team, unless it is.
All right, just for that, I'm not going to guess my team. You can't double psych me out into guessing my own team.
That's not what I was trying to do, but okay.
Yeah, no, he's on your team. Final answer.
On Cam's team?
Yes.
That is wrong. Once again, it is Ruthvik's team. Also, fun fact, Diego Castillo does make 20 Mariners on rosters. I forgot Diego Castillo was a Mariner. I just looked at his face and saw the Rays hat. But no, Paul Sewald is on Ruthvik's roster. Ruthvik has hyped up Paul Sewald quite a bit in the chat, and I believe he's on the trade block right now. And let's see if Paul Sewald has actually ever been traded. He has been traded once. Andrew traded him to Ruthvik at the trade deadline for a 2024 third-round pick. So Andrew used to own him.
Wow, way to sell low.
He really did. All right. Question number 9 is a Mariner who I thought you might not know the name of, but we'll see. He was ranked ahead of Emerson Hancock on Baseball America's Mariners prospect rankings. This is Brandon Williamson.
Oh yeah, Brandon Williamson, like our 4th best reliever or something like that in the pipeline. Is he a starter now?
He's a starter. He was a fan,
Okay.
Baseball America top 100 prospect. He had a pretty good year in 2021, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, he's one of those new hot prospects that we always seem to have. I guess I shouldn't be giving out this free advice, but if there's a Mariners reliever, or at least a Mariners pitcher as a prospect, you might want to pick him up because that organization does things to young pitchers' arms. It is wild.
Oh,
I'm going to guess he's on your team.
Who you're
Sahil.
him. You are correct. He is
Yeah.
by me. I did recently pick him up after Baseball America put him on the top 100 prospects list. I saw him above Emerson Hancock, thought that was really interesting. And I was like, I need another pitching prospect. So Brandon Williamson is a Ubaldo, as I called him, because my minor league team is called Ubaldo is a Wonderland. Not quite as fun as Giovanni is a Wonderland, but hey, Ubaldo also had his moments, and a lot of them were particularly good. But
Except his no-hitter.
That is true.
Does this make you the only person whose minor league team has a Slack emoji?
Actually, I think so.
My minor league hockey team has a Slack emoji.
What is your minor
Up.
league? Up. Oh man,
Man.
It's where the players are hoping to get called.
I was really happy when I came up with the Bench Miners as my minor league team name.
Oh, it's excellent.
That is fantastic. Oh my God. Speaking of fantastic, question number 10, we couldn't not ask you where this player is. Mitch Haniger. Who owns Mitch Haniger?
Who owns Mitch Haniger? Well, you were Church of Hanagod for a while, and then you became an apostate, so to speak, turned your back on the good light of Mitch Hanagod, and you traded him to Anthony, I want to say. So
Yes.
I guess he's still on Team Resnick.
Yes, that is
Wow.
correct. I traded him along with Giancarlo Stanton and Geraldo Perdomo to get Pete Alonso. And I believe at the time, both Stanton and Haniger were hurt. Definitely one of my more interesting trades to get Stanton. I forgot about that trade. Oh man. Giancarlo Stanton and Mitch Haniger and Geraldo Perdomo for Pete Alonso. So you got 6 of the 10 questions right. That is more than I thought you were going to get right, honestly.
That's more than I thought. I thought that, well, I knew that there was one prospect on Alex's team, and that was about it.
Yeah, damn. I'm impressed. I think that's going to wrap it up here. Congratulations on getting 6 of the 10 right. You got Harry Ford, Julio Rodriguez, Matt Brash, Chris Flexen, Brandon Williamson, and Mitch Haniger's right. You got Jared Kelenic, Robbie Ray, Ty France, and Paul Sewald wrong. Interestingly enough, 2 of your wrong guesses, you guessed Yuki. Yuki was not the correct answer to any of these questions. And 2 of the 4 you got wrong were guys you didn't think were on Ruth Vick's team, but were on Ruth Vick's team. Anything else you want to add here, Cam, before we sign off for the episode?
Yeah, well, the one thing that I have to say before we end is
Wow, hey, I know what that sound means, but in case the rest of you don't, that is the sound that means that we are out of time on our own Dynasty Hockey podcast, Who Cares You Suck. So make sure you tune into that if you're in the Dynasty Hockey League, or even if you just like hockey and want to hear people talk about a fantasy league that we are in and you're not. But thanks so much for tuning in. Thanks to Sahil and Cam for having me on. Apologies to Michael Resnick. We didn't have quite enough time for you this time, but we'll get you next time. So make sure you tune back in right here on Who Cares, You Suck. Wait, that's not right. And then we should cut it there.
Yeah.
Perfect.